Hi, this is Garibay, and this video I'm going to talk about why I don't own an American muscle car. So I'm a huge car fan, always have been, and I own a Kia Spectra EX 2009, which is like a sport model, but it's an import, and I did put custom rims on it. It's a nice car, I like it, but it's not an American muscle car, and I always wanted to own an American muscle car, right? So just a little bit sad. So why don't I own an American muscle car? And I feel like it's kind of a sad story. So there were two junctures in my life where I almost owned an American muscle car, and I'm a little tiny bit bitter, but that's okay. I'm extremely blessed. And but I've always wanted an American muscle car, and and I don't own one. And there was these two junctures where I was very close to owning an American muscle car, and they just slipped through my fingers. And so the first one was when I was 16. It was in 1986. So in 1986, my parents. I was 16 years old, and my father worked very hard. He was an air traffic controller. He was a great provider for our family. I learned so much from him. And he went out and he said, "Hey, you got your license. Let's go get you an old clunker, right?" And so we went, and which I thought was great. I was, over the moon, and I was very happy. And so we went, and he took me to a used car place. And said, hey, let's get you something nice, or let's get you something reasonable, was what he said. So actually, he came across a 1978 Firebird, and it was terrible paint job. Like, it looked good, it looked fine, but it was brown. It's like it just really unattractive color, right? But I was just thrilled, and I was like, I could paint this sucker, right? And the guys who lived across the street from me. I lived back in the day, back when this happened, I lived in Aston, Pennsylvania. And the guys across the street from me, this dude owned a 1970 GTO. Absolutely gorgeous. Pure black. Looked like a bat car, man. It was so cool. And he, the guy across the street, he was in my height. He was the same age as me. Went to high school with him, and, real nice guy. But his house was like, it was like central. It was car central, and all the cool dudes. Another guy owned actually a cherry red, like 67 Firebird, and and he would bring over, and they would bring over those cars. They would fix them there. So I was so excited to get this American, this American muscle car, this 78 Firebird, right? And I was just so excited. And we actually went, we found it, and we were all ready to buy it. And my dad was like, he wanted an inspection on it. And so then something happened in my family. So there was a family event. Someone in my family, and I don't want to get too involved into this story. Let's keep the stories distinct. But someone in my family had an event, and they were harmed. Right, and there was a hospital visit, the whole nine, and things just kept going. And when we went back to that to get that car, it was sold, and like the window where we could buy it was closed, and I was really disappointed. But actually, I wasn't disappointed for long. I got a Chrysler K-Car wagon. Oh my goodness, so sad. I went from a Firebird to a Chrysler K-Car wagon. And I was like, wah. I was just so sad. But I was so sad for about 30 seconds until I was like, I'm 16. This is America. I have my own car. Chrysler K-Car, woo! And so I was so happy, right? And I was sad for like 30 seconds that I didn't get the Firebird, but I'm smart enough guy to know that if your dad's buying you a car, man, you're living like a king. And I have been. Like, I have been incredibly blessed in this life. And so I've never owned an American muscle car. I've always wanted to, but I know I'm blessed. I'm blessed to have the car I have, but I did want to just tell that story. There was a second juncture where I almost got a nice American muscle car, and that was a 1969 Camaro. And that is now my favorite car, and the reason why was this whole story, right? It just kind of lodged in my heart, and to this day, 1969 Camaro is my absolute favorite American muscle car. It is my favorite car, period, right? Beautiful. Great lines, you know, really, you know, just good American steel, right? That is a great car. They are very, very hot. You know, they actually, I've learned about them ever since. Never driven one. They handle terribly, but they got a lot of power under the hood. And it's just a really great American muscle car look, right? So, when I almost got one was, I played Dungeons & Dragons with another buddy of mine. This guy was one of my two best friends in high school. Very, very nice young man. And he lived, you know, near my home in Chichester, near Aston, Pennsylvania. He lived in like Chichester, Pennsylvania. And I would go over his house. You know, I'd see him like 2-3 times a week. We had another buddy, and we played Dungeons & Dragons together, which was a lot of fun. And every time I went over to his house, I'd walk 100 feet behind his house, and 100 feet behind his house, there was a shed. And behind that shed, underneath a tarp, was a light blue 1969 Camaro. And this was back in like 1984. Or no, I'm sorry. This is not, so I had started seeing this car in 1984. For 3 years, I saw this car. So after I got my Chrysler K car, I started working, and I worked at the Family Fun Spot, where I drove go-karts, and I was a lifeguard on a swim on one of those slides on a water slide. Like one of the best jobs in the world. It was an awesome summer, right? And so I worked real hard, and I got $2 grand together. And this 1969 blue Camaro had been sitting in the backyard of my buddy's house. It belonged to his uncle, his father's brother, and I would see that thing there. And I came over one time, and his father's brother was there, and I said, "Hey, you know, you're letting that thing out there and just sit." And he goes, "Oh yeah. Well, I'm saving up. I'm going to fix it up. Well, I waited 3 years. He never touched that car, right? Now, this was like 1984 to 1987. It had been there for 14, it was driven in 1969 for about 3 years, and it went under the hood in like 76. So it had been sitting there for about 8 years, right? It had been actually sitting there for about 8 years. And I was just like, what? That's crazy, you know? And so what I did was I actually, you know, told the guy, hey, I scrambled together $2,000, and I said, I want to buy that car. He goes, hey, that car's worth like $6 grand, dude. You can't just buy it. And I'm like, hey, you know, I'm 17. This is all the money I got. I can't scramble together 6. And I know you want to put it together, but yeah, it's been sitting here for a long time. And he's like, no, get the stepping, kid. And he wouldn't sell it to me. They ended up junking it like 5-10 years later. So just a tiny bit bitter, right? But that's why I don't own an American muscle car. But I do count myself blessed. Thanks.